Arlene with the Southern Gals Kitchen. I want to welcome you to our show today. We're going to make one of my favorite foods, and that's chicken and dumplings. I know you're going to love this recipe, so join us in the kitchen and we'll learn to make old-fashioned chicken and dumplings the way my mother made them. I'm going to teach you the recipe. We'll be back in just a minute. Has been around a long time. It's one of those recipes that has been popular in the South probably since the beginning of the South being in America. They say it was really developed, though some say during the antebellum era, but other people trace it all the way back to the colonial times. During colonial times, they didn't make chicken and dumplings, but they made meat with dumplings, different kinds like quail or different kinds of meat, and they made fruit dumplings, which were popular back then, and they were made with peaches or blackberries or strawberries or whatever kind of fruit they had. Fruit dumplings are really, really good. We're not going to make those today, but you don't see those much anywhere anymore. People just don't make them much, and I don't see them in restaurants, but they are really good. Blackberry and peach are especially good. One of the things about chicken and dumplings is, it's like I said, it's been around for a long time, and people during harsh economic times have turned to chicken and dumplings because you can make a pot full of chicken and dumplings, serve a lot of people for a little money. And groceries are getting higher and higher, it seems like, every day. I mean, it just amazes me when I go to the store. So this is kind of harsh economic times. We need to learn to make dishes that will serve a lot, taste really well, and I'll do some other dishes like that. But chicken and dumplings is one of those you want to start serving your family. It's wholesome, it's delicious, and your family's going to love it, and they're not going to know you're cooking on a budget. But we're going to have to cook on a budget in this day and age. Every recipe is not going to be as low cost as this one, obviously. This one is a really good one. You can serve once a week. When I was growing up, we had chicken and dumplings almost every Sunday. We had chicken and dumplings or roast beef on Sunday or fried chicken. It just seemed like it was one of those three. I like to make chicken and dumplings for a Sunday dinner. I'll put my chicken in my broth, and I'm going to tell you how to make the broth here in a minute, on at noon, and then let it cook low and slow. I like a thick bottom pot because dumplings will burn when you put them in. If you boil them too high, your pot's too thin. You want a thicker pot if you can, but you also don't want to boil them real rapidly. You just bring them to a slow simmer and then just leave them alone. Boiled on high, they'll get too gummy and they'll burn, but we'll talk about that more. But chicken and dumplings are often served in the South in restaurants. People get them in bowls, and they're served often. I like to serve them on Easter. We almost always had them on Easter when I was growing up. And Thanksgiving and Christmas, a lot of people in the South serve chicken and dumplings instead of the usual turkey or ham. Sometimes they have both. But during the holidays, my sister always makes some Thanksgiving and Christmas for her kids. So it's very popular in the South to serve them during holidays. But again, especially it seems like Easter is when they're really, really popular for some reason. So let's learn to make some really good chicken and dumplings. My mother taught me to make them. There was no written recipe. And I've taught my kids the same way. But for this show, I have developed a recipe based on what I know about making chicken and dumplings. And I've made them from, goodness, I learned to make them from my mom when I was about 20. She's been gone a long time. She passed away when she was 92. So the recipe is really, really, really old. It's not a new recipe. It's an old recipe handed down from generation to generation. And sometimes those are just the best recipes around. You just can't beat the ones that are handed down from family to family, because they're handed down for a reason, because people like them and they taste amazing. So they're not going anywhere. They're going to be with us for a long time. The secret to chicken and dumplings, and I'm going to tell you my secret. There's really one secret. That's making this broth extremely flavorful, because that's what flavors your broth. You eat that too, but it flavors your dumplings. When your dumplings simmer in that broth, it picks up all that flavor. My mother made them with just the chicken, which I've got a whole chicken on here, and use a whole chicken with the skin and bones. You really do need that for flavor too, and you want to cook it low and slow. 3 or 4 hours isn't going to hurt. You can make this the day before if you have room to refrigerate it, and then heat it back up and make your dumplings if you have room. But this broth, my mom made it with just the chicken, the broth, makes the broth when it cooks out of the chicken. And she put butter in it, like a stick of butter, and salt and pepper. I've added to that just a little bit. I use that basic. This is up to here with the chicken in it. It's pretty full with water. It'll cook down slowly. But then the things I like to add, I do have my salt and pepper. And I'm only going to put in a couple of teaspoons of salt at this point. And I'll tell you why. Because we're going to add some things that my mom didn't add, but they have salt in them. And I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of black pepper. You can put in more if you like more, but I would put in 2. And then let this cook down low and slow. Then you can decide if you want more, okay? Then I take these herbs. Now I've got this sage out of my garden. That leaf doesn't look so good. I'm going to tear it off. Whoops. Okay, I've got just a couple of pieces of sage, 3 pieces of sage. I grow herbs in big old pots in my garden. I dropped that. And I don't want the dog or the cat to get the time. And then I grow a lot of herbs. I grow all kinds, and I dehydrate them, and I have them all winter. But these are fresh. You could use some dried if you had them. Then I've got thyme here. Just a nice big bunch of thyme I'll put with it, with the sage. And then I've got a stalk of rosemary, just one. My rosemary stays pretty green around here pretty much all winter. Sometimes with a hard enough freeze, it will start dying back, but I can get fresh rosemary well after Christmas here. Sometimes, like I said, all winter. Sometimes I'll kind of cover my pot or pull it in. I don't cover it, but I pull it in under the patio where the patio covers it, and it will stay green even longer. So I'll take these. It just makes an herb bundle. I've got a piece of string. I'm going to tie this up here. And then we're going to drop that down into the dumplings. That adds a lot of flavor too. And then you can just fish it out and throw it away. So the things we're putting in here to flavor it, I also have 2 stalks of celery in here with the chicken. I'm going to put in a whole onion. I just peeled it. Oh, it's water. Peeled it and put it in whole. Because you're going to take out the onion, the celery, and the herbs. Those are all going to come out when this starts cooking more. Put that over there. And then I've got, so we have our herbs, our onion, our celery, and our chicken, salt and pepper. Got a can of cream of chicken soup, and I've got 2 tablespoons of wet chicken base. Now you want the wet, not the dry. The wet chicken base will give it a lot of flavor. I've got that in here, and again, you got the salt, but you got salt in your chicken broth, you got salt in your chicken base, and then when this is all cooked, when I take my chicken out, my herbs and everything out, I'm going to add a stick of butter. If your chicken's really fat, you might use a half stick of butter. But generally, I'll use a stick of butter. And that butter will help flavor those dumplings again. But again, it adds more salt. That's why you want to cook this low and slow. Get it the way you want it. Take your chicken out and all that. Taste of this and get it the way you want it way before you start making your dumplings. Because that right there is the secret to good chicken and dumplings. If you don't have this seasoned the way you want it, then your chicken and dumplings won't be seasoned the way you want it. So we'll add this in here. And we're just going to let this cook, like I said, low and slow. Several hours. And then we'll come back and we'll make our dumplings. And I'm going to show you step by step the way I learned to make dumplings. I'm going to give you specific amounts so you don't have to guess. My mother always made them because she didn't have a written recipe. She would just make a well with flour and dump out a ladle of this broth into it, because this already has the salt. And then you just make it like pasta dough. But I figured out a recipe so you could be more exact, because that's kind of difficult sometimes for people to figure out exactly how much flour and all that. So I've got some recipe in a way. And we'll be back after our break and we'll start making our dumplings. Okay, we're back and we're going to finish up our chicken and dumplings. And yes, I did change shirts. I decided I don't want to be rolling out floury dumplings with a black shirt on. So I put on something a little more appropriate. I've already this morning, I told you how we cooked the chicken with the celery and the onions and the herbs, the thyme, and I put sage and bundle them up. And then you can put carrots in there too, salt and pepper. Don't get your broth too salty right away, because you can always add salt, but you can't take it away. Because after I cooked all that chicken and dumplings, and I got my chicken already deboned, shredded, and you want to really pick through this with your hands, because you don't want any bones in there, and I don't want any skin in there myself, but you especially don't want any bones in there. So I just pick it, and I'm really careful with it. So this chicken didn't have enough salt. Once I picked through it and got it all kind of finger shredded, I added just a couple of teaspoons, maybe about a teaspoon of salt into that. Again, taste it. When the chicken tastes good, salty the way you like it, you can put pepper on there too. Then it's ready. Back to the dumplings though. These dumplings, again, there's so many ways to make dumplings, and I see most of the recipes have, like salt and baking powder and things like that. To me, that's a fluffier kind of a drop dumpling, or even if you roll them out, they're going to be a little thicker. I like the old-fashioned thin dumplings that I grew up on. I tried to kind of get the recipe down where you could have some measurements. So what we have here, this is exactly 1 ladle of the chicken stock after you get all your seasonings in it. So it's got the salt, the cream chicken soup's in there, the wet base, everything's in here. This tastes exactly the way I like it. Just the amount of salt and pepper and everything I like. It's awesome. When it tastes good to you, it's going to be good. So it's 1 ladle in here. Now I have some extra here. Another ladle if we need it. You have to let this cool, because if this is hot and we're going to mix it with 1 beaten egg, and I've already beaten up this egg, if this is hot, it's just going to cook your egg. This is cooled. In fact, it's very cool. It's been sitting in here for a while. So we can take this 1 ladle and I can pour it right into my egg, because like I said, it is cool, so it's not a problem. You don't have to put the egg in, but I like the egg. Mother generally did, and it's makes a really good rich dumpling. These dumplings again are going to be thin, the way Mother made them, the way we like them. You like to cook what you grew up eating. Mother didn't measure, but I'm going to try to measure. I'm going to put about 2 cups of flour on a board for you, and then you make a well in the center. Just like you do if you ever make pasta. This is the way I make pasta anyway, and the way a lot of people make it. You make that well, and that well in the center is where you're going to put your liquid. And you put it in just slowly and sort of stir it around, and you'll pull in the flour as you're stirring. Some of it may run out like that did, and it's okay. You just keep working that flour in there with a fork. Some people use their hands, that's okay. But you just mix that in. And that's really all there is to dumplings. Pasta dumplings are all so easy to make. And you only work in the flour that you need. I like to do 1 ladle of broth at a time. And if I want more dumplings, I'll do a separate ladle, because it's just too much to try to do it all at one time, I think. I make better dumplings if I do them in batches like that. See how it's real soft? Way too soft to roll out, obviously, at this point. You want to work more flour in, but I also want to try to get most of this ladle of broth in. If we need more flour, we can always add it. Just work it around in there. If you want to use your fingers again, you can. I'll put a little flour in there. Eventually, I'll have to put my hands in here anyway. Guarantee it. Okay, there's the rest of that broth. And we'll start working that in, working it in, working it in. Then we'll only work in enough flour now until we get the dough the way we want it. We want the dough to be where you can handle it, soft and pliable, but not sticky. And when you make these, you'll see, you'll learn to make them by feel. Really, and that's really what it amounts to. Now it's probably not, it doesn't look like it's in flour. I say it probably ain't going to take all this flour. It might. Start getting your hands in it when it gets where you can handle it. And then keep working that flour in until you get a dough, again, that's easy to handle. See how it's getting more like dough? It's still going to be soft, but not so sticky you can't handle it, because you want this to be workable, rollable. You want to be able to roll it out and cut it. So we're going to use most of this 2 cups. I think that's going to be the right amount. Again, you can always add salt. If you cook your dumplings and you think they still need a little salt, you can add a little bit, but that broth in your dumplings and in your pot is generally going to be enough salt. But again, make them to your taste, your preference, your taste, okay? That's always the rule. Now see how that dough, I can pick it up now. You don't want it tough. You don't want a tough dough by any means. You want a soft, pliable dough for these dumplings. There's all kinds of dumplings, like I said, but these are soft, pliable dough, but you can handle it. See, it's not sticking to my hands. When it gets to that point, we're ready to roll it out. Now to roll them out, I'm just going to push this flour kind of aside, because we need a floured, lightly floured board. Get some of that dough off of there so that won't be sticking. And you have to roll out dumplings, or I roll them out, in small batches. Now that dough is getting a little bit stiff on me, and I don't want it stiff, so we don't want to add any more flour. At this point, adding more flour is just going to make them tough. Okay, we'll see if these roll out well enough. Okay, I'm going to take about, maybe cut this in fourths, so I can roll out about a fourth at a time. And then I've got another ladle of broth there already cooled for my next batch. We wouldn't eat a lot of these chicken and dumplings by ourselves, but I'm going to take some to my son and my grandson and son's wife, and so they're going to help eat them. So you just take a small amount of dough. I like to kind of flatten it out with my hands and just kind of work it gently. You don't have to overwork it. Lay it down, and then you can start rolling it out. Still got some flour in my way there. I think I'll kind of push it back some more. This we can roll out. Just keep enough flour so it doesn't stick. Roll them till they're as thin as you can get them is what I like. I always said roll them as thin as you can. Like I said, you'll see dumplings that say an eighth or a fourth. These are thin dumplings. These are yummy dumplings though. They're so good. They're just, they're real flavorful, and they're tender. They're just really, really good dumplings. Like I said, if you like drop dumplings and all that, I'm not opposed to that. Some of them are very good, but I really want my mom's chicken and dumplings. I'm going to make them just like this. Roll this out till it's thin. Again, small batches is what you want. See how it's getting really thin? We can still handle it. Doesn't have any thick spots. And you know dumplings, you roll them back and forth, they just shrink back up. Roll them one way, and it won't shrink back up on you. Then roll another way. These are getting pretty thin. You don't want them so thin you can't pick them up, obviously. All right, that one's ready. We're going to cut these. You can use a pizza cutter, but this is a really sharp knife. I like to just cut them in strips, about an inch wide maybe. And this is going to make quite a few dumplings that way, out of the 4 pieces that I've got here. And then I'll see if I want to make more. I'm going to cut them and move this around so I can cut them this way. About the same, about an inch. You can make them longer. And you know, some people buy frozen dumplings, but maybe it was a brand, but I bought them once and I threw them away. We didn't like them. I don't know. If you like them, maybe there's a way of doing it that I don't know about. But we just did not care for them. Now, let me get something to put these in. These dumplings, I'm just going to put a little flour in here so they won't stick. Just going to lay them in here, and then we'll put them in our broth. You want your broth to a rolling boil, soft, not a big boil, a soft sort of rumble in there. I call it rolling boil, soft boil. And then just don't stir your dumplings. You'll just mess them up. They'll get all gummy. You just want to let them cook on their own put in about a batch at a time. Let them cook till they're tender. I like to keep it kind of simmering 10 or 15, 20 minutes and let them soak up that flavor. And then I'll get one batch kind of partially done. Then I'll add another batch in there. And I just keep working at them that way. When you get them all in, then I'll put the lid on actually. Turn it down really, really low, or turn it off even. And you don't want to cook them, overcook them. You want them done. To see if they're done, I take out one and I test it. And sometimes, well, it's not done enough, and I'll let them cook a little more, and I'll take out one and I'll test it. When they taste right, they are right. They'll just be, they'll have that real good taste to them. They won't be doughy. They'll just be good. And they'll cut really well, and you're going to love these. Like I said, this is 100-year, probably more than 100 years old, because Mother made them all of her life. And like I said, she passed away at 92, and that's been several years ago. I don't even know how many years ago, but it's been quite a few. And then, I'm sure she learned to make them from her mother. Her mother probably made them and probably learned how to make them from her mother. So it's just one of those hand-me-down, watch what I do and you'll learn to do it kind of recipes. So that's why I'm kind of doing it on the show for you too. But I wanted to give you some kind of measurements to sort of go by, because otherwise it's really difficult to, I had a mother I could watch, but you just watching me, I think you need some guidance there. So that 2 cups of flour, there's some left, but it's about the right amount. 1 ladle of broth, that's kind of a standard ladle. And that 1 egg with the 1 ladle of broth beat together is pretty much going to do it. We'll keep rolling these out. And you just keep working with these. You get them rolled out, get them the way you want them. I'll tell you what, make this for your family for Sunday dinner or Sunday night. If you don't have time in the morning, just do them for supper, do them for night. You can also cook your chicken up, your broth the day before, and then just reheat it. You can have it ready. You can go ahead and pick the chicken out, the bones out, have all that ready, and then you can just heat that up and make your dumplings. You can also do that. However you want to do it, whatever works. And Saturday, I find Saturday a lot of times is a good time for me to do things like this too, because it does take a little bit more time. It's not that you're in the kitchen very much, you're not. But that chicken and all that needs some time to cook. So we're going to do these just like we did the others, about 1 inch. Mother had a cute little, little row thing. I guess it was a lasagna cutter. I used to have one of those, but I don't have it anymore. But that made cute little edges on your dumplings. That was always fun. Now turn this, because it's a little easier to cut them that way. I kind of like cut the long ones first, and that way I don't have too many tiny little dumplings. But nothing wrong with a small dumpling either. They all taste good. I have been known to make big dumplings. You can do them kind of how you want to. These are not going to stick for no longer than they're going to be in there. Like I said, they're not sticking to my hands, so they're going to be okay. Now, if your kitchen was really warm, I've got air conditioning on. It's heat index about 108 outside, but it's plenty cool in here. If your kitchen's warm though, you might not want to stack them up like this. You might want to just go ahead and drop them in your pan. Normally I would go ahead and drop these in batch at a time, but I'm doing this for the sake of the video to kind of show you what we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and drop these dumplings in, and I'm going to finish rolling out the rest of them, and I'll see if I need to make another batch. I will, and I don't know yet. I'll see how many dumplings it makes, how many's in the pot, because I said I'm going to share them, but I don't want tons of dumplings left over either. So, and this dough, you want to work with it. It will dry out on you. You could cover it with saran wrap too, kind of keep it from drying out. It's not drying out yet, but you can. Comfort food to the hilt. I hope you'll try these. Let me know how you like them. They are amazing. Seasoned just perfectly. Sometimes the old recipes are the best ones. There's a lot of good new recipes, but this 100-year-old recipe is really, just can't beat it. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.